Tonight's live stream deals with the case of the 16 children who were discovered in deplorable and, well, deplorable is an understatement, but deplorable conditions in rural Ohio. Yesterday we covered this case. I was immediately demonetized. The not my entire channel. The stream yesterday was immediately demonetized by YouTube as subject matter that is really not all that advertiser friendly. That's not stopping me today, though, because I've had so many more questions about about what happened leading up to what happened to these 16 kids. And actually, there were more. Uh, there are reports. You guys mentioned it in the live stream yesterday, but there are reports that there were a set of conjoined twins that died shortly after they were born. So many questions, especially in light of Jennifer Coffindaffer's comments on News Nation about possible issues with incest. So, we're going to get into it. I want to give you maybe a trigger warning on this one. Look, it's okay to sit one out. It's okay. And I don't mind if you say to yourself, subject matter on this one's really tough. I'm going to just watch me some World Cup. I don't mind. You could go and do that. But for the rest of you who stick around, we're going to dig deep into this case. We're going to read some reporting that has come out. And we also are going to be joined by Jennifer Coffindaffer, the retired FBI special agent, who also has a YouTube channel called Break the Case with Jen Coffindaffer. It is linked below. So there's a lot to get into today, including more news in true crime. We've got headlines in the Charlie Kirk assassination and the preliminary hearing of Tyler Robinson. We've got an attorney chiming in on this, whether the case is going to make it to trial or not. We have an update in the Celeste Rivas Hernandez case, the De Forvita prosecution. We've got a little update in the Lily and Jack Sullivan family saga, the Nova Scotia kiddos who disappeared, and we still don't know what's happening there, but we've got a little update. Of course, we got some movement on Nancy Guthrie, and we've got an update on the Dan Markel case. So much to get into, including some good news. So why don't we start before we do the opening, Javi, don't push that button. Before we really get into the opening here, let's start with our question of the day. The question, we're going to try to keep it a little light. What's something small that always makes your day better? Put it in the live chat. Put it in the comments. Tell me what makes your day better, because this is a case that is having an impact on me. We gotta keep happy. We gotta keep friendly. So be sure to put your answer to what's something small that makes your day better, that always makes your day better. And while you're doing that, Javi, you can now push the button. This video contains mature themes and discussions intended only for adult audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello there, my friend. Welcome back to another true crime conversation with me, Gavin Fish. Thank you so much for being here. I'm deeply grateful that you will spend a little bit of your time with me each weeknight here on YouTube, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, either live on YouTube, or if you're in the rewatch crew, you can watch it anytime you want. Bonus points, brownie points to those of you who decide to do it over on Spotify. If you are premium video members on Spotify, boy, that goes a long way to helping me with my work. Thank you very much for everything you do. When you put a comment that you want me to see on the live chat, please put GF in the comment. That helps me. It highlights it on my side. And while you are answering the question of the day, what's something small that always makes your day better, be sure to tell me where you're tuning in from. I love to know what the answer is to that question. Guys, tonight we are continuing our coverage of the case of 16 juveniles, ages 18 months to 18 years. The 18-year-old having some sort of disability, some sort of cognitive disability. But these 16 kids were stored allegedly by the four people on your screen. They are Gary Siders, his son Gary Siders, Christina Siders, and Elizabeth Siders. This is a multi-generation family, but the multi-generations might be mixed. We're going to talk a little bit about this with Jen. It's I don't like my mind to go there, but I'm grateful that Jen brought that up when I was reading the report that she contributed to on News Nation yesterday. So here on your screen, this is Gary Siders. We're going to call him Senior. Christina Siders, his wife. Gary Siders, we're going to call him Junior, their son, and his wife, Elizabeth Siders. Now, the background on this is that Elizabeth was 7 months pregnant when at the age of 15, she and Gary at age 18 went from Ohio into West Virginia to get married because there was a little bit of an industry. West Virginia at the time was all about the child marriages, apparently. And at the age of 15, this woman, now, that girl then, went to West Virginia with her boyfriend where they got a marriage license and they got married. My question that I've had since we really dug into this yesterday was, is Elizabeth Siders another victim in this? And I asked Jennifer Coffindaffer that very question. We will get to her answer on that. I think maybe where we want to start, though, actually, where we want to start is where we always start. I want to check in to see what you guys are saying over in the live chat. Let's see. Central Texas is checking in. Miss Chivos Dragon, thank you very much for checking in. We've got, let's see if it's going to show up here. There we go. Waco, Texas in the house. Thank you very much for being here. Sharky saying the story is so rough I might need to check out, but being with all of you helps. Yeah, guys, once again, there's no shame in it. I invite you to go ahead and turn off the live stream if this is just in any way mentally or emotionally damaging to you. I think it's so important to talk about, but there's no one size fits all for everyone. Okay, this is a bad case. Christine checking in from the suburbs of Atlanta, where I saw my beloved Argentina take on Egypt. And I don't want to spoil it for y'all. It happened hours ago. I don't want to spoil it for y'all, but that was a great game. Let's see what else we got. Clarinet says, good afternoon. I promise no soccer spoilers. Good. I saw that game, but and so I know, but let's not spoil it for others. Saudi Daisy, Tennessee in the house. Good to see you, D. Thank you for checking in. Tina May says something that always makes her day a little bit better is a good cup of coffee. Cindy says making jewelry makes my day better. Patricia says cake. Lily Wayne says sunshine. Lulubelle says the same thing, sunshine. Diane says to hear from my kids. That's always a delightful thing. We get a Saturday check-in from our married daughter and son-in-law. It's delightful. They start with a little tune. Saturday check-in, Saturday check-in. It's a Saturday check-in. That's how it always starts. Lynn says, doing gardening and some hand embroidery makes my day. Awesome. Terrific. Tui says, my 3 corgis. Carly says, getting exercise in the morning. Excuse me, I've still got a little bit of a cough, so I'm going to be hitting that button from time to time. Please excuse me. Tuning in from Ontario. Coffee Time for D says, my grand papu coming to make sure I'm here in the house. She has to make sure everyone is in the house, and it makes me so happy. That's cute. Waking up is a good one. Akron, Ohio in the house. Lily says waking up is a good first step for sure. My Toronto is in the house. Thank you very much. Small thing, talking to my childhood friend of 56 years. I love talking to my childhood friends. I am in several different group chats, group texts, and whenever we can, we get together. It is very helpful. Sorry about that coughing, guys. Kitten Pusher says something small that makes my day better. My chihuahuas. Mooney getting us started off. Thank you very much for the super chat, Mooney. I deeply appreciate you and all the hard work you put into moderating us here. Clarinet Girl says my day is always better after a glass of sweet iced tea. Don says when you call him Deforvita, that makes your day better. Good. Wow. Danny, I see your comment. I'm going to keep it off screen. But I am glad that you are a survivor. Palm Beach County, Florida is in the house checking in. South Carolina Low Country is here. Bath, New York is here. Glad you're here. Northeast Maryland. Liverpool is in the house. Winnipeg is here. Wales is here. Awesome. Robin, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Guys, I put a goal for Super Chats today because typically what happens on YouTube is 15, 20 minutes or so will pass after a live stream is gone. And if it's going to get demonetized, that's about when it happens. 15, 20 minutes. Last night, I finished the live stream and it was already demonetized. We're talking about really, really grown up subjects. So to help me with my work, I've put a goal hoping that we can reach 10 super chats tonight so that I can continue to do this work. No pressure. No pressure. It's a simple invitation and a simple goal. Robin says, when the cleaners hay my house in order, when the cleaners hay my house in order, maybe get my house in order, keep my house in order, leave my house in order. Gluten-free 86 says, my 4-week-old hand-reared kitten Rio, she is the sweetest. Ontario, Canada's here. North Carolina's here. South Carolina's here. Minnesota, Illinois. Thank you all for checking in. Deeply appreciate all of you. Okay. I think the best place to start here is probably with some new reporting, and then we will go over to the video of the conversation that I had a little bit earlier today with Jen Coffindaffer. She has a YouTube channel called Break the Case with Jen Coffindaffer. I have linked it in the description below. Definitely check her out. But let's start with a couple of things. Okay, this from I've got a couple of reports from NBC, the local NBC affiliate, NBC4. This headline says twin sisters of 16 children Take two, Javi. Twin sisters of 16 children rescued in Vinton County died of natural causes, records show. This by Katie Millard, Adam Kahn, Heather Barr, and Isabel Cleary. Dateline Columbus. The death of twin girls who are siblings to the 16 children rescued in Vinton County last week was due to natural causes, birth and death records show. On June 30th, officers responded to a home in Hamden where they said they discovered 16 children, some of whom were in critical condition, allegedly living in a 12 by 12 room. 4 adults were arrested from the home, and the children ages 17 months to 18 years were given medical care and emergency support. They were Gary, Christina, and Elizabeth were all arrested. Officials responded to the home on Omer Street with a search warrant as part of an investigation involving allegations of DA and child neglect, but unrelated to the current case. Now, this report is the first time that I've heard that. I've heard that the warrant, that the reason that they were there was on a warrant for indecent exposure. But this is the latest reporting. Okay, this was reported yesterday. Let's see. Rumors have flown wildly online regarding the family, including rumors regarding a headstone in Hamden that displayed the names of two girls, Bailey Lee Siders and Faith Lee Siders, both of whom were born and died on November 20th, 2022. Death records indicate the twin girls were part of the Siders family, but died because they were born as conjoined twins at 24 weeks. According to birth records, Faith and Bailey were born on the 20th of November at Riverside Methodist Hospital in Columbus. The twins' death certificate said they lived 1 hour and listed the manner of death as natural. Cause of death lists respiratory failure because the twins were born conjoined with extreme prematurity, estimated to be 24 weeks. The records show the twins were thoracopagus conjoined, meaning face-to-face at the chest and upper abdomen, typically sharing vital organs. The birth records show the twins were born to Gary II and Elizabeth Siders. They refer to Gary, the older Gary, as Gary Sr., but he is Gary Jr., and they refer to Gary Jr., the younger one, as Gary Jr., but he is actually Gary II. That's the way it works. Okay. NBC4 has obtained birth certificates for 4 other children, including the oldest and youngest children. All obtained birth certificates list Elizabeth and Gary II Siders as the parents. NBC4 is not naming any children who are alive to respect the privacy of the victims. Now, this brings a question, right? We're all questioning. I came to this question late because I'm naive. But the birth certificate is going to show who the parents say, or who the people showing up as the parents, the mother obviously, and the father. It's going to say who they say are the parents. It doesn't mean that there was some sort of DNA test that was done to ensure that both Gary II and Elizabeth are actually the parents of the children. And this is 4 out of 18, right? So I think the question is still out, right, on that one. Although records and conversations with officials, attorneys, and a family member indicate Elizabeth and Gary II are likely the parents of all 16 rescued children, NBC4 cannot definitively conclude the parentage of 12 of the children. Well, NBC4 cannot definitively conclude the parentage of all 16 of the children. All due respect to the writers there, for reasons that I just said. There needs to be DNA on this one, guys. There needs to be a DNA. And in my conversation with Jen, which is coming up, she talks about physical maladies, physical malformations that are due to incest. So is it possible that conjoinment is one of those malformalities? It's possible. I don't know specifically. And I'm not an expert on this. I haven't even looked it up, but Jen talks about it a little bit. We will get to it. But NBC4, no, you cannot definitively conclude the parentage of any of the children, absent a DNA test. And there are very good reasons to suspect that there's different parentage here, which is sad. Oh my goodness, so sad. Rumors online also claim the children were born at home. That is incorrect for at least some of the children. Records show Bailey, Faith, and at least 4 other children were born at hospitals in central and southeast Ohio. Wilson said the case was an isolated intra-family incident. Oh, he's talking about why did that jump over to him? Wilson, the person they're talking about, is the state attorney general, but I feel like maybe I've accidentally, or in printing this, have missed some of the article, but we'll go on. Wilson said the case was an isolated intra-family incident. Other details are scarce as it is an ongoing investigation, although NBC Investigates requested public records to better understand the dynamics and awaits the result. Wilson said the investigation will take time, in part due to a lack of communicative ability from many of the alleged victims. Wilson said the oldest child could not write their name, and some were unable to speak. All 4 Sider adults will be in court on Tuesday for their next hearing. That would be today. So, yeah, there's good investigative work by NBC4, the local affiliate there. I'm a professional quibbler, as you guys know, right? I've even got audio for it.
I'm a professional quibbler.
That's right.
I love to quibble.
I do.
I quibble for fun.
That's exactly right. My only quibble with this reporting is that they claim that they can definitively conclude the parentage of 4 of the children, and they cannot do that. That is not true. It may be in the way it was written, it may be in the way it was edited, but it's definitely not true. So that came out yesterday as we were on the air. This from the same team: Katie Millard, Adam Kahn, Heather Barr, and Isabel Cleary. Excuse me, just 1 minute. Sorry about that, guys. This cold is. I wish I had like they have on radio shows where they kind of are broadcasting a little head. So when you hit a cough button, it's immediate. But anyway, uncle of 16 children rescued from Vinton County home says family is horrified. Dateline Columbus. Ronnie Fletcher, uncle to 16 children rescued in Vinton County last week, said the rest of the family was horrified and had no idea what was going on in the Siders' home in Hanbin. Now, before we go on, when I first read this, I thought, oh, come on. There's no way. But perhaps it is because I come from a close-knit family. When I talked to Jennifer Coffendaffer about this, she had a little different take, so we will get to that here in a little bit. All right, quote, my wife will take the last $5 out of her pocket and buy somebody a meal and chance running out of gas to get home, Fletcher said in an interview with NBC4's sister station, WOWK of Charleston, West Virginia. We didn't know this was that way. We would have helped. On June 30th, blah, 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 blah. Fletcher has known the Siders family since grade school. His wife is Gary Sr. and Christina's daughter. So, getting back to this. Gary Sr. is this guy, Gary Jr. Christina is his wife. So Fletcher's wife is their daughter, meaning Gary the second's sister. Just to figure that all out. Okay? One of Gary Jr.'s, Gary the second's, 4 older sisters. Although he said he frequented the Siders' home growing up, he said that they had not had a close relationship with Gary Sr., Christina, Gary Jr., or Elizabeth Siders for some time. Fletcher said he has not known where his in-laws have lived for at least 7 years, and last saw Christina, often known as Lynn, about a year ago. Fletcher said the family did not spend Thanksgiving or Christmas together, and the only time the rest of the family typically interacted with the foursome was when Lynn Siders called to ask for money or help paying the bills. Fletcher spoke with WOWK to offer clarity, as he said the situation for his wife and her 3 sisters has been awful since the news broke. Fletcher said his wife, and his children have deactivated their social media and are staying in their home without being able to work because they've received death threats and people keep driving past their residence. Okay, you people that do that, I know that I'm not talking to any of my viewers here, any of my regular viewers. If you just happened on here and you were somebody who would give a death threat to somebody over the news, over anything, dude, just go away. Just go away. Turn off. Just go away. Okay, stop doing that. For crying out loud. As if they had anything to do with it. And even if they did, don't do that crap. Come on. I need to pull it back. Wanda. I need some calm down music. Can you calm me down? Maybe just a short little something. Deep breaths, Gavin. Just calm down. All right, thank you, Wanda. That definitely helped. Okay, continuing the article. Quote, now they've got our kids trapped inside because we fear for our kids to let them outside because of these people that are acting crazy, Fletcher said. And again, guys, I know you regulars don't do this, but ooh, if one of you lurkers just happened onto this and you are a death threat, a Rudy, guy, gal, whatever, stop it. Wanda, I need more. Need to calm down. Thank you, Wanda. Okay, continuing the article. He said he had only met 2 or 3 of the rescued Siders' children, and that was years ago. He said he knew there were a lot of children, but did not know how many and believed they were being homeschooled. Investigators said none of the children rescued could write their names, and some were not able to communicate. Jen talks about this a little bit in our conversation, which is coming up. Fletcher said the first time he saw the Siders' home was on the news. The house was up to date on its property tax payments, and most recent payment being paid in February in the amount of $960.88. And according to Hamden Village Water Department, the house did have running water with sewer and trash service, all in the name of Christina Siders. Fletcher believes things worsened when the elder Siders were no longer able to manage the home. Fletcher said the home, he believes there Let me start that over. Fletcher said within the home, he believes there was an autism diagnosis and other mental health concerns. Fletcher said Gary Sr. had a stroke at some point that may have affected his cognitive abilities and believes things spiraled from there. Growing up, Fletcher said he visited the Siders' home multiple times a week and knew them to be a regular family. He strongly denied online allegations that there had been generational abuse or incest within the larger family. Jen talks about this too. I can't wait to show this to you. Quote, they were a typical American family. You know what I mean? Getting by. They didn't have tons of money or nothing like that, but they always had a clean home. The kids always went to school, Fletcher said of the Siders' home when he, his wife, and Gary II were growing up. An employee with the Mason County Clerk of Courts in West Virginia confirmed that on March 31st, 2008, Gary Siders II and Elizabeth Siders were married at the ages of 18 and 15, respectively. The oldest child in the home was born 2 months later, May 30th, 2008. Because of the timeline, many users on social media speculate Elizabeth was also a victim. And this is my question today. Many on social media speculate Elizabeth was also a victim due to the age she got married. Fletcher said he did not know if there was violence or other issues in the home, but said Elizabeth was, quote, willingly there. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to diagnose that as a layperson, though, right? And I don't like to engage in wanton speculation. I don't like to trade in that, but I do have questions, and uh, and we've learned from sad experience covering cases like Micah Miller, for example, that there are people that are so good at coercion that they can get somebody who they purport to love to do almost anything. And when we're talking about a 15-year-old girl, and who knows what other influences were in her life, right? So these are just questions. I don't want to speculate on whether or not she was controlled coercively, whether or not she was abused. What I know is that she was 15 years old and 7 months pregnant when she married an 18-year-old in West Virginia. And to me, that does raise a red flag, especially considering that they had 18 children at least, 18 that we know of, 16 that survived, the first hours of their life, and held in a 12 by 12 room in squalor, human fecal matter, probably cat fecal matter, probably rodents and all sorts of bugs, and just like, these are red flags. These tell me that there are issues beyond just the regular day-to-day normal family kind of issues, right? I don't feel like I'm going out on a limb here. Okay, so willingly there, I don't know. I don't know if I can agree with that. Of course, Fletcher knows the family, and so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, but there's so many red flags, right? Investigators, continuing the article, investigators have kept details of the alleged abuse close to the chest and have not shared accusations outside of general allegations about the state of the home. Officials said the scene was horrific and alleged livestock were kept in better conditions. Quote, I think if they would have waited another 24 hours, there was a very high probability we'd be dealing with a death or multiple deaths of these children, Ohio Attorney General Andy Wilson said. Fletcher asked people to stop harassing him. I will join in on that. Please stop harassing people. Listen. Okay. All right. Hold on. Hold on.
Listen up, kids. Uncle Gavin has some wisdom for you.
Hello, kids. It's your Uncle Gavin here. I'm just barging in, just for a moment, to just tell you, or remind you, a gentle reminder, do not harass people. Just don't harass people. And if I could just add an especially, a little postscript here. Do not harass people that are tangentially connected to a crime. Okay? Don't harass people who are directly connected to a crime. Okay? That harassment is a crime. This brought to you by Uncle Gavin. Okay. Getting back over to the article. Fletcher asked people to stop harassing him, his wife, and their kids, some of whom have medical degrees and who are raised differently than their cousins. He said his wife has been unable to work, making it harder to properly care for their own children and put food on the table. He asked the public to stop blaming his family when he said they knew nothing about the alleged abuse. Okay? I join in. Stop the harassment. Crying out loud. Quote, we've done what we could for that family at the arm's length, and they was keeping us at. That they was keeping us. I'm sorry, I really have a hard time with this. Hold on. Javi, I'm gonna need an edit and post, I think, on this one. What's that? Oh, this is a live stream, you say. I see. Okay, so we won't be able to do that? All right. Quote, we've done what we could for that family at the arm's length that they was keeping us at. Fletcher doesn't sound like somebody who has a medical degree himself, but okay, gotcha. The Siders adults have another court hearing on Tuesday. That's today, and officers said the investigation is ongoing. All 4 suspects pleaded not guilty and are being held on a $300,000 bond. Okay, let's pause there and just check in to see what you guys are saying over in the live streamer-rooney. Hold on, I'm getting some. Okay, good. That was a personal text. I want to make sure that I wasn't missing something important from my beloved, my snuggly bear, my sweetie pie, my one and only. Okay, why is this doing? Okay, let's go like this. Caroline Taterville, thank you very much for the super chat, $10 super chat. I appreciate you very much. Lil Devil 78 says, glad I found this channel. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you as well. I'm glad you have found the channel too. Coffee Time for D says, I appreciate you talking about the difficult stuff so frankly. Keep up the good work. Thank you, D, and thank you for the super chat. Christine Meadows with a very generous super chat of 20 buckaroos. Thank you, Christine. Thank you so much, all of you. You guys are amazing. That really helps on these ones where I'm sure that I'm going to get demonetized. Robin says, the explanation they use for the Garys is about as clear as mud, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Okay, let's do it one more time, okay? There's Gary Jr. and there's Gary the Second. They are called Gary Sr. and Gary Jr. Why? Because people don't like nomenclature, apparently. I don't know. But that is the deal. Caroline Taterville saying we need DNA, and you are definitely not wrong there. Sorry about that coughing, guys. Hopefully I'm hitting the mute button before I blow out your eardrums. Australia checking in. Henny Penny, thank you very much for checking in. And who is Fletcher? Fletcher is a brother-in-law to Gary Siders the second. His wife is Gary Siders' older sister, the daughter of Christina, aka Lynn Siders, and Gary Siders Jr., aka Gary Siders Sr. So funny. Clear as mud, Robin. Clear as mud. AKD says, just got here from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Something that makes my day. Golden Retriever puppies. Well, you are not alone. You are not alone. Thank you very much for sharing that. I appreciate it. Okie dokie. Let's go back over to Acrobat. I've got another couple of articles, and then we are going to get to my conversation with Jen Coffendaffer. This written by Jesse Bethia. Again, NBC4 reporting here. Lawmakers look to address shortfalls after Vinton County child abuse discovery. And, the one thing that you can count on lawmakers, well, let's call them politicians, is that they will be reactionary, not proactive. They will be reactive. Javi, let's do a take two. Live stream, you say? Okay. They will be reactive, not proactive. Of course, either is better than inactive. So let's see what Jesse is teaching us here. Dateline Columbus. Following the removal of 16 children from an allegedly abusive home in Hamden, Ohio, lawmakers and advocates are asking how this tragedy could have happened and what the state should do moving forward. Rep. Mark Johnson said Monday that for the most part, people in his district, which includes Hamden, are in a state of shock. Quote, some of the best people that I've ever met in my life live here, Johnson said, but Vinton has the lowest population of any county in Ohio and is one of the poorest counties in the state. Shortly after the removal of the Siders' children and the arrests of we're just going to do this one, Gary, Christina, Gary the second, and Elizabeth, Johnson sent a letter to Governor Mike DeWine seeking emergency financial assistance from the state, both in prosecuting the case and in caring for the rescued children who may have significant and long-term physical and behavioral health needs. Quote, I respectfully request that the state provide financial assistance to support the immediate and ongoing needs of these 16 children, including foster care placement, medical treatment, behavioral health services, counseling, and any other resources necessary to ensure their safety, well-being, and recovery, Johnson wrote. I also respectfully request that funding be made available to assist with any necessary services or expenses that may not be covered by Medicaid, close quote. So it looks like, foster parents are in need. The details of the Sider family case are so extraordinary, the article continues, that lawmakers aren't sure what, if anything, could have been done to prevent it. That is one of the things that I always look at when I look at any type of legislation that comes in the wake of some kind of outrageous story. I ask myself, hey, if this were in place beforehand, would it have stopped this? Or would it have addressed this or minimized this? Usually the answer is no. And I think that this is a fair sentence, very, very well written. The details are so extraordinary that lawmakers aren't sure what, if anything, could have been done to prevent it. The Siders appear to have lived off the grid without interacting much or at all with the community, which, according to Representative Karen Brownlee, is a significant challenge when Ohio's social services agencies operate on a county-by-county basis. Quote, if the family did not integrate with the communities in which they lived, it could have made it very difficult for others outside the household to suspect the levels of abuse happening to the children, Brownlee said. Quote, if a family knows they're under investigation and are not motivated to change, they can move to another county or state where they may be able to repeat the cycle. When you have no record of anybody, I don't know if any government agency or any law change could try to help in this matter, Johnson said. But Chris Graham, a child welfare advocate, disagrees. Good reporting, getting both sides of this. Good job. According to Graham, the state legislature could strengthen mandatory reporting laws and pass a prohibition on child marriage, noting that Elizabeth and Gary Siders Jr., not Jr., the second is what they mean to say, were married in West Virginia when Elizabeth was only 15. Quote, I think the only thing that gets people and legislators talking about these reforms is an extreme scenario like this, Graham said. I hesitate to use the phrase silver lining. How can I as a human being? But I look at this, and I hope something good comes from it, in that Ohio picks itself up by its bootstraps and starts to legislate in a way that protects kids. Let's see, Rep. Phil Plummer is sponsoring House Bill 635, also called the Child Protection Reform Act, which aims to strengthen mandatory reporting and improve interagency cooperation to try and catch cases of abuse and neglect faster. He also believes the Vinton County case may help get the legislation passed later this year. That is a little bit of a silver lining. A little bit. Okay, I'm not going to finish it out, but they're working towards it, right? And then the last article I want to share with you before we get into my conversation with Jen Coffendaffer, which I found fascinating and also enlightening. This is a person with 25 years of experience in federal law enforcement. She's an expert witness, and she's a contributor at News Nation. She's amazing. Okay. This from News Nation. Prosecutor weighs in on Elizabeth Siders' possible defense. Again, what is my question here? Is Elizabeth Siders also a victim in this? I don't know the answer. I don't even know if it's proper to ask the question, but people are asking it, so we're diving in. This written by Tatiana Carter and Jesse Weber. So here we go. Okay, new questions are emerging about the 33-year-old mother of the 16 kids found living in squalor as prosecutors build their case against 4 Siders family members charged in the Ohio child endangerment case. Court records obtained by News Nation local affiliate WOWK show Elizabeth Siders married Gary Siders, not Jr., the second, in 2008 with her parents' consent, when she was 15 and 7 months pregnant. Ronnie Fletcher, same guy from the previous thing, uncle to the 16 children, said Elizabeth Siders had a difficult home life before marrying into the Siders family. Interesting, because he said that they were pretty darn normal. But okay, in the previous one, but let's see. Quote, she's willingly there at the home. Okay, he's not disagreeing with himself so far. She did not have a very good home life when they got together, and she escaped, Fletcher said. Okay. Social media posts reviewed by Los Angeles Magazine include a claim from a man identifying himself as Elizabeth Siders' brother, who said she had been indoctrinated. He went on to say they only reconnected recently after being estranged for 15 years. So, could Elizabeth Siders' history be used as a defense in the 16 Ohio kids case? On News Nation's Jesse Weber Live, host Jesse Weber and former lead Susan Smith trial prosecutor Tommy Pope discussed whether that background could play into legal defense. Quote, so child bride indoctrinated, had her first baby allegedly at 13, Weber said. Is any of this a defense? Quote, I don't know if it's a defense, Pope said. I think it can break down strategically even on how you try them, whether anybody has a separate trial, whether they're in there together. Pope said the circumstances surrounding Siders' marriage stood out to him. Quote, it looks like she got married with her parents' consent in West Virginia when she was 15 and was 7 months pregnant, Pope said. It almost seems like the worst of circumstances. To her credit, they kept the child and they chose life, but it seems like she's been locked in that cycle, obviously based on the number of kids. What does intra-family mean? Pope also addressed Ohio Attorney General Andy Wilson's description of the case as intra-family situation, a term he said he had not encountered before. quote, best I can see, it's almost alluding to some sexual relationships within the family, perhaps with the father-in-law or something of that nature, Pope said. 2 of the 16 children referenced in the case were twin girls who died shortly after birth in 2022 from natural causes tied to extreme prematurity, according to the birth and death records. That's not reported correctly. Those 2 children are 2 additional children. There were 16 that were saved, 16 living, as I understand it. Maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. Pope said prosecuting the case will be difficult given the ages and communication limits of the alleged victims. I don't know, man. I think you show photos. I think you show video. I think there's no jury in Ohio or any other state across the fruited plain that would not convict these people if everything that we know about them so far is true. Okay, so that is everything that I've gotten as far as reporting that I wanted to share with you from last night and today. But despair not, as I like to say, despair not. We've got plenty of other stuff to go. I want to, before we start the interview with Jen Coffedaffer, I just want to say thank you once again to the 6 people who gave super chats today. You guys are amazing. That's Mooney, Robin, Caroline Taterville, Little Devil, not a big devil, just a little one, not a little one, a little one, and Coffee Time for D, and Christine Meadows. Thank you very much. I deeply appreciate you. If you can find it in your heart or in your pocketbook to support me financially, I deeply appreciate it. I think I've said deeply 6 times, but that's the best word I can think of to describe how much I appreciate your help, because I know that this will be demonetized before the live stream ends, because we're not dodging the hard questions here. Before we go over to Jen, real quick, from Indie Girl, I'm hanging in here because this is such an important story, but I'm so angry, and I don't even know who to be angry with. I couldn't even think of one small thing that makes me happy today. Well, I hope, you know what? Hey, Indie Girl, fortunately for you, I have Wanda. Wanda's picking up her harp right now. Wanda, help us calm down. Taking deep breaths. Thank you, Wanda. Julie, welcome to Fanatic. Thank you very much. We have a members only and patrons only live stream coming up tomorrow. So you joined just in time. Thanks for doing that. I appreciate you. Lynn Taylor says, having been a foster parent twice, I know they are short of foster families everywhere. Yeah, you know they are. And it's difficult. It's difficult to be a foster family. Cabling says, no, I heard that too, Gavin. 16 live with a couple that may have died during birth or shortly thereafter. That's what I understand. So thank you, Bling. That's what I understand too. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do now, it's going to be weird. You're gonna see some weirdness here. What? There are 2 Gavins on the screen right now. It is because earlier today, I texted my friend Jen, and I said, hey, Jen, can you talk to me about this case from your point of view, your perspective as former law enforcement? I recorded it so that I could play it back here for you guys. I believe this conversation is 20 minutes or so, 26 and a half minutes long. So I'm going to play this in its entirety. I will not interrupt it, but I will keep an eye on what your live chats are saying. But please pay close attention to this conversation I had with Jen. I thought it was extremely fascinating, and I'm very grateful to Jen Coffedaffer, who came on. Look, it looks like I'm a what do you call the kind of person who doesn't move their lips when they speak? A ventriloquist. It's like I'm a ventriloquist here. Look at me go. I'm just so amazing. But pay attention to what she has to say. It's fascinating, and then we will pick it up. I will be watching the live chat, and we'll pick it up when this is over. Here we go with Jen Coffendaffer. Well, I'd like to welcome back Jennifer Coffindaffer back to the show for a conversation on a case that's absolutely just heart wrenching. Jen is a 25-year retired FBI special agent. She has a YouTube channel of her own, Break the Case with Jen Coffindaffer, right here on YouTube. And she is a News Nation contributor. Jen, you're busy.
Yeah, it's been a busy past few years. The biggest thing that I'm busy on are these expert cases, which is totally separate. So I won't bore your audience with that. But yeah, it's a busy time of year for me for sure.
No, and that's important because, and we've talked about this before on my channel, you actually testify as an expert witness in court proceedings, right?
That's correct. That's correct. All across the country, mostly in federal cases. That's certainly my bailiwick, but I also do a lot of state cases, and it's primarily all homicide cases. I would say about 90%.
So yesterday I started coverage of this case of these 16 children, ages 1.5 to 18, out of Ohio. Absolutely heart wrenching. And the reason I contacted you is because you were quoted in News Nation in an article that I read, and you opened my eyes to a possibility, Jen, that I am embarrassed to say I was naive to the thought of it. I'm also kind of proud of myself for being naive to it. My mind doesn't go there, but if I can just read your quote, it says, I think there are going to be other charges. I believe these other children, the females that were able to be of childbearing years, I think they're going to have to do full DNA.
Mhm.
It absolutely broke me, Jen.
I
Tell
know.
us what you mean by that.
Well, it is awful, and most people's minds don't go to that, and mine wouldn't go to that, but for having cases and intersection with this exact type of behavior. And unfortunately, when you look at the age range, 18 months to 18 years, that is almost humanly impossible for one female to produce that many children back to back to back. Number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, when you look at the issues, you have an 18-year-old that has been described as disabled mentally, can't write her own name. Obviously, part of that could be just receiving no education. The children described as feral, all of that developmental. Part of that's nutrition and how they were treated, but certainly I think it could be as the result of incest. And that makes a lot of sense to me, just in other cases like this, where you have, I mean, I'm just going to speak from experience, a
Yeah.
den of debauchery. You basically have these children down there, and they become able to be used at the will of the male parents and grandparent. And I hope that's not the case. We're going to wait on DNA to see. But I just have to say, my expectation is that. And if I am pleasantly surprised, I'm pleasantly surprised.
Wow. Uh, this is reminding me of some of my own experience. And again, I feel completely naive to have been shocked by what you stated on News Nation. But also, grateful that my mind doesn't go there. But as a reporter, I live in a place in Western Pennsylvania that is kind of the Rust Belt. There is extreme poverty out here. There are pockets of deep, what would we call this? Mental illness. There are like pockets of mental illness, and there are pockets of substance abuse. And I've actually gone, Jen. One time there was a guy with a warrant out for his arrest for incest. And I became aware of it through the court, and he hadn't been picked up yet. And I went out to his house to knock on his door just to see what his plans were when the police showed up. And he full on sat down with a reporter on the record, told me everything, recorded. And I thought, you don't have two brain cells to rub together, man. Like, he's probably just a product of that environment, right? Like, I
Well,
just don't know how to explain it.
it's very interesting because even though in families that are have money, because this occurs across the board, not just poor and impoverished, certainly more in those environments. But it occurs across the board. And with people who have money, it's much more guarded, right? It's a dirty secret and something that is hidden. But in some of the
Mm.
lower income, particularly when you're dealing with individuals who have been highly affected from inbreeding, they're not as smart. You're also going to see things like cleft palates at a larger state. In other words, physical deformities that are more easily passed on because they're the same genetic markers that are being used over and over again genetically. And things like also club feet, things like that, and small heads, obviously developmental delays, intelligence waning, because you have these defects that are more easily passed within a family, obviously.
So if you were to walk into a scene like this, and I don't know if you've ever been on a scene like this. This was described by the state attorney general as the worst thing he'd ever seen, right? But are you noticing things like that? If you walked into a place and there are 16 children, ages 18 months to 18 years, we've got multiple generations in the same household. These kids have been kept in a 12 by 12 room, no access to very much at all of the outside world. Some are even described as unable to communicate. Are you looking for physical manifestations of those kinds of crimes or those kinds of, I guess, genetic, markers?
Well, I've got to tell you, I've never walked in with 16, that's for sure. But I've walked into situations just as bad or worse in terms of the overall presentation of the home, where you have feces everywhere. And they didn't even talk about this, but I guarantee there's rats, there are insects, roaches. I would imagine, if it's like the scenes I've seen, that are everywhere. It's really hard to explain these environments. And so many don't realize, I think, that this is so prevalent. I can't, and in many cases, CPS even knows about them. I remember one case I had, CPS knew about them, but what are you going to do? You can't take in every child. And I know people are just going to be shaking their heads, but it's something we see all the time. Anybody who has worked cases involving missing children, involving child abuse, involving domestic violence, involving impoverished areas. This is something that unfortunately you see it. But back to your question, um, it's sad, but I think at some point in my career, I sort of expected it, especially working gangs. That was an area where you just, it's unimaginable what you see. People, when they are engrossed in their meth addictions, crack cocaine addictions, they don't care for anything or about anything. So that's why you see these children left. That's why you see their house complete disarray. When I say disarray, that's not the right word. It's just horrible. Cats are typically everywhere because there's rats everywhere. Um,
I did notice that in the pictures they had like cat dishes on the porch and stuff like that. There were 3 or 4 cats that I saw in photos of the scene, and they bring those in because they have a rat problem. Is that why they're doing that?
I think partially, it's always crazy that you will see some of these homes where the dogs and cats are kept better fed than the children. It's really sad. It's unfathomable, I think, for so many, and I think that that's why this story, Gavin, has grabbed your heartstrings and has really attracted so many people to just shake their heads and in disbelief at what we're seeing here. But it happens so often, Gavin, more than people really realize. It's horrible.
What do you do, Jen, when you like? This case shines a spotlight on me, and it it perfectly illustrates one of the many thousands of reasons I didn't go into law enforcement, and that is just absolute heartbreak. Right? You as a law enforcement officer or a social worker are walking into a scene like this, and you see this scene. How do you, as the kids would say, how do you even, right? How do you cope with that? And what are steps that I guess? So a two-part question: how do you cope? And what do you do? What is happening for these kids right now, you think?
Well, these kids right now are in various stages of treatment. Some, of course, one is still hospitalized, as far as I know, in critical condition. We don't know which child that is. The others, my understanding, have been released, and they're going to go, of course, into foster care. And the foster programs try to keep families together. There is no way to keep these 16 children together, obviously, but they will try to do that. They'll try to keep, even if it's two that somebody will accept. But this is the issue. When you have individuals like these children, who some of them are going to be able to communicate at all because they haven't learned how to talk, they haven't been around others that know how to talk. That's how you know how to speak, is
Yeah.
you're around people speaking. You haven't had any education. My understanding is they didn't go to school. There's no record of them being in school. I know that the attorney, and I read what the attorney said, that they were all born in hospitals, and that the mother was very concerned that that was the first thing she asked, "Are they okay?" I just did a tweet and said, "Elizabeth, no, they're not okay,"
I
because
said the exact same thing last night. When I read the attorney's comments, I said, okay, listen, I like good lawyering, and everybody deserves a good defense, and we want there to be a vigorous defense. We want our justice system to do its job, including a good, competent defense. But also, come on, come on.
yeah, it's it's absurd, some of the things I thought he said, but nevertheless, like you said, I'd rather err on the side of somebody vigorously defending than not, because then our justice system will completely fail. But these kids are being managed in various states depending on how developmentally delayed they are. These kids are going to need speech therapy. They're going to need emotional help. They have lived like feral cats, I believe, down there. If it's like anything like I've seen, and anything like what has been described. And, just the fact, I was just watching the very first police report that came out, where they described they were in their own human feces. So not only the cat and the rats, and if there were any dogs, human, that tells me they have had actually no care. I mean, you can't afford the diapers, the formula, the amount of food it would take to take care of these individuals properly. So they were just there to manage on their own. And it's just horrible. It's just horrible.
I want to hear your comments on coping for law enforcement and social services, people who care for in situations like this. But one of the things that has been really, I guess, surprising to me is the fact that apparently they were able to hide this from so many people for so long. I also am kind of skeptical, right? I know that Elizabeth Siders, at least one brother, maybe two brothers, are on TikTok talking about this, saying we had no idea. And I read an article that an uncle had said we had no idea. We only hear from them if they need money. But I mean, does that strike you as even possible to keep that from family and friends? I think it's probably possible to keep from the school system or social services with major effort, but is that possible to keep it a secret from the extended family?
Well, they kept this 16 a secret, as I said, I think for their own enjoyment, pleasure. I think that's why they did it. As far as how they did it, um, moving all the time, which we know they did, keeping these kids out of sight in a basement, moving in the dark, never letting them out. all of that was critical to keeping their dirty secret and their den of debauchery intact, right? So you have all of that going on. But your question about family is interesting because in these cases, it's been my experience that the family is actually completely uh, not involved. Their
Oh,
extended family typically, they come out of the woodwork, right? And they just want to clear the slate, say, listen, I just want you to know we didn't know anything about it, because they know through sleuthing and everything else. But typically, these, brothers, sisters, uncles, and so on, they had no relationship with these individuals typically. And
hmm.
I agree with them and believe they didn't know what was going on because likely they were so estranged. And so I believe that, but I find it so disingenuous when they come out and try to say, listen, we didn't know any about it, but yet look up here, look at me. It's really sad. I mean, she was 13, I think, maybe when she was first impregnated. I'm not sure how that went, but
Yeah,
at
the
15,
the
right?
records that I saw, she was like 7 months pregnant when, at the age of 15, they went to West Virginia to marry. But who knows if that was her first pregnancy, right? that
Yeah.
that's another, I guess, part of this is, okay, we've got Elizabeth Siders, who, let's see, I think I can push the right buttons and bring this up here, right here. Elizabeth Siders, who is purportedly the mother of these children, though you have called that into question, I think correctly so, that she may or may not be the mother of all of the children, but she is described as the mother of the children. She's 15 years old when she's married to an 18-year-old. She's 7 months pregnant when they get married. There's a whole issue over in West Virginia that I think it probably has been, there's a leak that's been plugged there, because I think there was a bit of a industry of child marriages happening there in West Virginia. I think that's been plugged a little bit, but I mean, is it possible that Elizabeth Siders here is as much of a victim in this as maybe she is a villain?
It's such an interesting question. And of course, I try to keep my mind really open. But this is the problem, Gavin. I would totally agree that her family abandoned her, even allowing her to marry at the age of 15. I mean, that's a sophomore, right? But I know
Right.
she wasn't at school, she quit school. But there is something so innately wrong with any parent that just has absolutely no idea what their child is doing and is allowing this relationship. That this is just my opinion. Um, at that young age. Um, and I think it was probably would be clear to anyone with a set of eyes that what was going on in that relationship was probably unhealthy, especially when they continue to have kids. But it seems to me that those parents just washed their hands of her. So, in that way, I think she was a victim. I think she was likely controlled and victimized early on by Mr. Siders and by those parental units. I will be very interested to see if there was any relationship that existed, not meaning consensual necessarily, between the grandfather and Elizabeth. I'll be very interested to see all of this that may come out. But at the end of the day, any human knows right from wrong. Any human can walk in that 12 by 12 space and see 16 children. And yes, I'm describing the 18-year-old as a child because they have ruled that she is mentally deficient. I mean, in other words, she hasn't developed her brain. She's uh, special needs in this way. And so they're treated as a minor when that happens, and that you can look and see that there isn't something wrong. She described herself, the attorney said, as a homemaker. So she wasn't working. What was she doing? So I give her some deference because I think of what happened early in her life, but I just cannot overlook how she treated those children. There's no way I can.
ultimately some responsibility has to be taken, right? Okay, let's go back. We'll finish up with this because I'm just very curious. How do the first responders, the social workers, the law enforcement agents, the prosecutors, even the defense attorneys on this, seeing the details of a case like this and dealing with the fallout of a case like this, how do they cope, having to kind of wade through the muck of all this?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to put it. Wade through the muck. So I will say, just in law enforcement, I think it took me about 10 years, to be honest with you, to really be able to compartmentalize. I was okay at it after a while, but it takes so long to be able to just put it over here in the corner, deal with it professionally, and stay detached. You really can't. What you can be good at is compartmentalizing, where it doesn't bother you as much as at home, and you can, like I said, put it in the closet. But then you still have to wake up the next morning at 7, and you have to go deal with that case and deal with the issues that come into play. So, how do you do it? You get hard, a little bit callous. I always said it took me probably 3 or 4 years, I think, to deprogram after being an FBI agent working violent crime and organized crime and gangs. It just takes a while to deprogram from what you see. And then you get, kind of that naiveness. I'm not going to say naiveness, that's probably the wrong word, but you get softer with all of that, Gavin. I was asked one time by Natasha Suvez, she did an interview, and she said, if you could change one thing or something like that, and I know I specifically said it would be undoing everything I've seen.
Hmm.
It would be back like I was when I was 18, you know,
Yeah.
before I got attacked. I would just undo all of it. Um, so it is hard. It is hard. But I'm going to say this, and sorry, I'm probably talking too much, Gavin.
Not at all.
You do end up seeing the good you can do. And there's some really cool solace in that, where you can say, we got these kids removed. Um, we're going to put these bad guys in prison for the rest of their lives. This is a rest of their lives type case. It really is. This should be the rest of their natural lives for what they have done to those 16. Anything else, if they're convicted, anything else is a travesty of justice.
Well, I can only speak for myself, but I imagine most people feel a deep debt of gratitude for people who will put themselves out there and do this kind of hard work. I think I've shared this with you before, but my uncle, my late uncle, spent his career at the FBI, got his degree in criminal justice, and it was his first and only job. He was a special agent with the bureau, and he was probably the nicest, sweetest, quickest to laugh, most fun-loving guy. Uh, I mean, well, our family is kind of that way anyway, but he just fit right in. But I could tell there was something in Uncle Jan that he could switch on and or switch off, right? And fortunately for all of us, we got to see him switched off at family reunions and get-togethers and stuff like that. But yeah, that talent of being able to compartmentalize that way, to shut the door, right, of that part of your life. That's I guess I'm just saying I'm grateful for people like you and other people that have had to wade through all that and had to do that on behalf of our society. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Jen, what's going on your channel? What are you doing these days?
Well, I'm very intently still on Nancy Guthrie. I do show almost every day on her. It's just a case that I'm fascinated by from so many aspects. It's a case that I just want justice so much for that family and for Nancy, what happened to Nancy to come to light. So I stay on that and have different guests on to discuss that. And then I'm hoping at the end of this month, going into the, I guess, August 1st, maybe. Elizabeth Smart, I believe I'm going to be instructing at a conference that she's going to be speaking at. It's a 3-day women's retreat. And I'm very hopeful that she'll maybe give half an hour of her time and come on my show. So that's kind of the big, uh, you know, guest that I am
Yeah.
hoping to get on. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. But definitely on top of the Nancy Guthrie case, I want to do a show on this case. I so appreciate you, Gavin, bringing this to light. It's a subject people don't really want to talk about, and it's people don't like to. Tim Tebow says, I was recently at a conference with him. People don't like to pull back the curtain because it's so hard to see what children suffer, but we got to do it because maybe then a neighbor that sees your podcast will notice something. um, so that's how I look at it. It's advocacy and bringing attention to cases that need attention brought to. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate you coming on. Jen Coffendaffer, retired FBI special agent, News Nation contributor, and YouTuber right here. And I will link, Jen, to your YouTube channel in the description so that everybody can get over there. And I highly encourage a subscribe over there on Jen's channel. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gavin.
Jen is the best, guys. Jen is the best. I'm grateful that she took some time out of her busy schedule today to have that conversation with me. And I appreciate your comments that I've been watching as that has been playing. Thanks for keeping it classy. For the most part, there have been a couple there where my mods have had to step in, guys. We keep this channel classy, and like 99.9999% of you do. We got 6 9s pure here on this live chat. Every once in a while, there's a guy that comes in that ruins it, but I'm so glad that I have our moderators to take care of that. There was a couple, or there were a couple of comments that I wanted to bring up real quick. This one from a Heineman. Excuse me. A Heineman says, no, it's been confirmed she is the mother and Gary Jr. is the father, confirmed today in person by lawyer. Okay. First of all, I appreciate the comment. I just, the skeptical reporter in me is going to stay there, stay firmly put. How did that confirmation come from? If the lawyer says that all the children come from Elizabeth and Gary II, how does he know or she know that? And where is the proof? I think DNA is in order here. But I know that you're on the ground there, and I know that you went down there for the hearing that was canceled. And thank you very much for doing that. For me, what's the proof? I want there to be proof, because I don't know. This one just smells. Frida People says, Gavin, certainly Elizabeth knew that her children suffered, but she probably had no idea just how horrible the situation really was. She had nothing to compare it to except her own horrible childhood. One's frame of reference probably is important. That is something that maybe her lawyers would argue at trial. Let me just keep on scrolling along here just to make sure I've got everything. It looks like I do. So that's where we are on the story, guys. We are going to keep our eyes on this one. This is just extremely important. And the fact that you guys would offer super chats and other support for me, memberships, in order to make it so that I can continue to do this work just means the world to me. Thank you so much. Speaking of memberships, tomorrow after our live stream, we will be doing our weekly after show. This is only the second one, so we're trying to get into a groove on Wednesdays to do a weekly after show for our patrons and our members. So if you are not a member and you'd like to sign up, please do so. I did see that Boss Lady Boss Lady is now a member. Thank you very much, Boss Lady 325. Came in right under the wire, and I appreciate you, and we're going to do that. Now, before we call it a day, we still got a couple things to do. Let's see. We did the articles. We did Jen's interview. We have got some headlines in the Charlie Kirk assassination, the prosecution of Tyler Robinson, the prosecution of De Forvida in the murder of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. We've got an update in the let's call it a tangential update in the Lillian Jack Sullivan case. Some updates in Nancy Guthrie and Dan Markell, surprisingly. And we've got some good news. This one suggested by none other than intrepid moderator Robin. But before we do that, how about we hop into 3 questions? Here we go. Let's do it. With Gavin Fish. Guys, in this segment, I answer your questions that you send to me at 3questions@gavinfish.com. 3questions@gavinfish, 3questions@gavinfish.com. Don't try and cheat and put in a question in the live chat that needs to go to 3questions@gavinfish.com. I solemnly swear that I will answer all questions 3 at a time right here on this very channel. And question number 1 comes from Angela. Hey, Gavin, do you play the lottery? By the way, I like questions where you guys can play along as well. So you answer these questions too. Angela, I do not play the lottery. It's not a thing that I do. I have in the past joined in. Excuse me, I have joined in on this would be years ago when I actually worked in an office, but where a bunch of us in the office all chipped in and pooled our money together and then subsequently lost the lottery, right? So, no, I don't. But I don't know. Are you inviting me into your little pool? I might be interested. I might be interested. Question number 2 from Bonnie. Is a preliminary, she says trial, but I think she means hearing, and grand jury one in the same? Bonnie, they accomplish basically the same thing, but they are not the same. And it's not a distinction without a difference. Here's the difference. A grand jury is a jury that is actually assembled. It depends on your location, but it's like a jury. It's 12 people, 14 people, 6 people. It depends. They get convened into a courtroom, and then without the defense present, without the defendant present, they present to the grand jury their evidence, and they're asking the grand jury to find that probable cause exists to make a charge. If that grand jury finds that probable cause does exist, they hand down what's called an indictment. And that indictment doesn't mean that a person is guilty. It just means that the jury found that probable cause exists to make the charge. A preliminary hearing accomplishes the same thing, but it is done in the light of day. It is done to a judge, not a jury. And it is after a judge has already found, hey, there was probable cause here to make an arrest, or sometimes there's a warrantless arrest. But it then goes to a judge again. The defendant is able to be there, is able to be represented by counsel, is able to, the prosecution will call witnesses. The defense will cross-examine those witnesses. The judge may ask questions of those witnesses to determine if probable cause exists to continue the process on to trial. So they're both probable cause, not hearings, but they're both probable cause mechanisms, but they do it different ways. And depends on where you are. What jurisdiction you're in will determine what system is being used, either a grand jury or a preliminary hearing. Typically, federal proceedings are done in front of a grand jury. Lots of states do them as well. Lots of states also do preliminary hearings. And oftentimes what will happen is the defendant will say, I waive my right to a preliminary hearing. Let's just go. So there won't be a preliminary hearing. They will just say, yeah, there's probable cause. Let's just move on. Right? That's hopefully I described that correctly and understandably. Thanks for the question, Bonnie. Question number 3. Kelly asks, if you could join a pop music band, which one would it be? Kelly, what do you think? Are you talking like a current one or one from the past? Because currently, I have no idea. I have no idea about any pop music groups that are currently on the charts or recording albums or anything. So I'm going to have to go back to the past. I have no rhythm, so I can't be a Ringo. So I can't join the Beatles. But the Beatles, I would definitely want to be part of that. I would be the sulky one. I would be like the, okay, I'm sick of you guys kind of one. I'd be George is basically what I'm getting at. I would be George. Um, I would love to be part of Fleetwood Mac and just go, hey guys, let's hold it together here. Let's just all get along. We make great music together. Let's just all get along. Another one, maybe Sly and the Family Stone would have been cool to be part of. ABBA. ABBA. I want to be the guy with the crazy guitar. I'm not sure, is that Benny or is that Bjorn? I can't remember. But ABBA. That's my final answer. My final answer is ABBA. That is the pop music band which I would want to join. Thank you very much for the question. You guys tell me, do you play the lottery? And, which pop music band would you join? Do that in the comments while I head on to other fare. It is headlines. Here we go.
True crime headlines.
Okay, speaking of preliminary hearings, the preliminary hearing of the century is happening this week out in the state of Utah, my home state, the state of my birth. In the Charlie Kirk assassination, the prosecution of one Tyler Robinson. I found this article to be enlightening. I think it was originally published on News Nation, but I found it on thehill.com. Defense attorney believes accused Charlie Kirk killer will not go to trial. Well, yeah. Charlie Kirk's accused killer Tyler Robinson has no chance of going to trial, defense attorney Mark Eiglarsh believes. Eiglarsh's belief comes after the preliminary hearing against Robinson got underway Monday, where the judge heard from 2 of the 4 scheduled law enforcement witnesses. Robinson, of course, faces several charges, including aggravated murder in the September 10th, 2025 fatal shooting of Kirk while he was speaking to a crowd at Utah Valley University. Robinson turned himself in 2 days later after his family confronted him and police released surveillance images and details about the rifle used. If they can avoid it, hell no, Eiglarsh told News Nation's Cuomo. They run to the nearest sporting goods store. They get the thickest knee pads. They fall to their knees in front of the prosecutors and they beg them to take death off the table, he added. Asked by host Chris Cuomo why the prosecution would rescind the DP if Robinson were to be convicted, Eiglarsh noted closure as the key factor. Quote, the deal would include him waiving all of his appeals, Eiglarsh replied, acknowledging that Robinson would go to prison and get no more publicity. He also noted that the DP for Robinson isn't a guarantee, citing that in Utah, all 12 jurors have to agree on the decision. It's as close to a guarantee as you can get. Like Utah and Texas are the DPiest of the DP states. If DP was being charged and they found him guilty, I'm telling you, in the state of Utah, those 12 jurors would agree. It would, yeah. Okay, quote, let him live his life in prison, he said. That'll be more difficult, or maybe they'll kill him quicker there, or whatever their reasons are. Okay, I don't like the prison justice angle of it, but okay. So far, Robinson has not entered a plea in the case, nor have his attorneys commented on his guilt or innocence. If he were to plead guilty before trial, the state would be able to avoid a trial altogether. So this defense attorney believes no chance this goes to a trial. And I mean, statistically, Yeah, history's on his side on that one. In the Nancy Guthrie case, speaking of our friend Jen, this written by Alicia Sitz, ex-FBI agent, says keeping case in spotlight is critical. A former FBI agent says keeping Nancy Guthrie's case in the media spotlight is critical in getting answers to her disappearance. I think it is so important that her name stay out there and that somebody who knows something continues to see this. Former FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer told News Nation's Hina Doba on Sunday. Everybody thinks because we're newsies or love crime and follow that everybody knows about it. But the fact of the matter is, people really don't know about these cases. So keeping it in the media is critical. And she's absolutely right. We live in a bubble. We all follow this and think everybody else does too, and it's not the case. She says the FBI should do a blitz campaign plastering pictures of the masked suspect caught on Guthrie's Ring cameras across the country. Coffindaffer also says they need to use Spanish when they're communicating with the public. Her statements come as the FBI discounted some of the ransom notes. Yeah, we blah, 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 blah. They're going to compare IP addresses, Coffindaffer says. They're also going to look at how they're worded, what is used in terms of syntax and how and so forth in that lettering, the demands that were made and actions that were followed after. So they're going to be looking at all of it, talking about the different methods to figure out what's legitimate and what's not. The FBI did not specify how many ransom notes it has received other than saying several. So good on Jen for keeping that spotlight there. Hey guys, let's go over to the DeForvita case. The preliminary hearing of DeForvita, also known as David, aka David Anthony Burke. Preliminary hearing in death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez to begin July 21st. Now, this has been pushed back, 3 times? 4 times? I can't remember. It'll be pushed again. A preliminary hearing for singer DeForvita. Shout out to Pascal for coining that term, at least for me. Charged in the death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. I want to bring up Celeste here. Will be held starting July 21. The singer, whose name is David Burke, is charged with first-degree murder. Don't do that one, Gavin. Do this one. There we go. Mugshot. With special circumstances, lewd and lascivious acts with an individual under 14 and mutilating a body. Prosecutors will lay out their case in the hearing, and a judge will determine if there is sufficient evidence to proceed to trial. This is exactly what we talked about, the difference between a grand jury proceeding and a preliminary hearing. Let's see if there's... Yeah, he's pleaded not guilty to everything. So I guess we will hope that it's the 21st. I somehow doubt it. Moving on to Lily and Jack. Remember that their stepdad has been charged with lewd crimes of his own. A guy named David Martell, this guy right here. And let's see what's going on with him. This from saltwire.com. A long process of evidence disclosure caused Daniel Martell's charges of SA, assault and forcible confinement, to be adjourned for a second time. The stepfather of missing children, Jack and Lily Sullivan, didn't appear in Pictou Provincial Court Tuesday. That was today. He was supposed to be there. We're still going through disclosure. There's quite a bit, said his lawyer, Nicholas Hone. We haven't yet received the full disclosure. Crown Prosecutor Bill Gorman said he's still going through the evidence and attributed his request for adjournment to Stinchcombe obligations. The 91 Supreme Court of Canada ruling in R.V. Stinchcombe set the standard for Crown evidence disclosure. It's like Brady for us, I guess. Let's see. And then it goes into Lily and Jack, which they still have not been found, guys. Still not been found. So this is a sideshow to the circus of Lily and Jack. Okay, lastly, in headlines, second to last, because we got good news. Could Katie Catherine Magbanwa get a deal in the Dan Markel murder? According to the Tallahassee Democrat, the answer is maybe, written by Jeff Burlew. Rumors are bouncing around YouTube and social media about a new development in the Dan Markel murder for hire that, if true, would see a major player in the crime get a deal for her post-conviction cooperation. And while the lead prosecutor in the Markel murder trials acknowledged such a deal was a legal possibility, she told the Tallahassee Democrat she has not asked the presiding judge to sign off on one. Markel, Florida State University law professor, was shot and killed in the garage of his Benton Hills home on July 18, 2014. 5 people, including his ex-wife, Wendy Adelson's brother, Charlie Adelson, and mother, Donna Adelson, were charged and convicted in his murder. 2 of the hired killers, Luis Rivera, took a plea deal in 2016, while the other, Sigfredo Garcia, was found guilty at trial in 2019. His co-defendant and the mother of his children, Katie Magbanwa, got a mistrial but was found guilty during her second trial in 2022. Magbanwa, who acted as a middleman between the Adelsons and the hired killers, was offered full immunity early on if she cooperated. Convinced she could beat the charges, she turned the state down, only to be sentenced later to life in prison. Asked by the Democrat whether she asked Leon Circuit Judge Stephen Everett to vacate her sentence, she replied, "I have not asked Everett to vacate anything." She also was asked whether she was considering such an ask. "It's a legal possibility," she said via text message. "No comment on what I'm considering." So could the girlfriend of Charlie Adelson, the go-between, get a deal? She has been pretty darn instrumental in the prosecution of Charlie and Donna, hopefully Wendy sometime soon, and hopefully Harvey too. I think they're just as guilty. And in good news, hey, I don't want to get ahead of myself, Wanda. How about we do some good news transition music? Let's hear it.
Silent on a soft sunrise, good news shining in your eyes.
I feel like I need a stinger for this.
Smooth and slow, sweet tomorrow's finally home.
You know, Wanda, I don't understand the lyrics on that one, but I appreciate the segue into good news. Guys, Robin asked me to do this one. Have you guys heard about Neil the Seal? Have you heard about Neil the Seal? If you haven't, do yourself a favor and just go to social media and search Neil the Seal. I'm going to introduce you to Neil the Seal, okay? Neil the Seal, Neil the elephant seal, juvenile seal. He's starting to get into that age where he's getting bigger, and he is engaging in shenanigans. Shenanigans, I say. This from AP. Viral fame could be dangerous for Tasmania's Neil the Seal and his fans. So this comes with a warning as well, by Charlotte Graham McClay. Dateline, Wellington, New Zealand. Like plenty of local boys before him, Neil has come home to the stretch of Australian coast where he was born. Unlike most of them, he trails fame, fans, and property damage in his wake. He is also a 1,000 kilogram elephant seal. In June, the bellowing and blubbery 5-year-old mammal hauled himself onto land for his twice yearly tour of beachside towns in southern Tasmania state after months of feeding at sea. That's posing problems now that he weighs as much as a small car and has a social media following more than double Tasmania's human population. His rampage through local infrastructure has claimed bent traffic bollards, a sign warning the public about seals, an offense that did not survive Neil's attempt to vault it. The rest of the time he lies placidly any place he likes, which is sometimes in the middle of the road, bringing towns he visits to a standstill. But officials say their biggest concern is that Neil's popularity could lead to ill-advised human-seal encounters that are dangerous for both sides. Now, Neil is a bad boy with a long rap sheet. The only male elephant seal to visit Tasmania in years, has commanded an enthralled TikTok following of 1.4 million, in part because he acts like kind of a jerk. During his visit to shore, his 12th, his crimes have included picking fights with parked cars, smashing through barriers erected to keep him off roads. Those antics have prompted some online to hail Neil as a kind of anti-authoritarian hero, but experts say it's normal experimentation for a growing seal. Juvenile male elephant seals need to practice for dominance battles in which adults rear up and crash their chests together as they compete for breeding opportunities, said Sophia Volsky, an elephant seal scientist based at the University of Tasmania in Hobart. With no other juveniles to practice with, Neil can only rehearse on Toyotas. You guys got to watch these videos, right? Officials plead to leave Neil alone. Local officials fear that Neil is the latest wild animal whose social media stardom has outgrown what's good for him. Quote, Neil's fame is a bit of a double-edged sword, said Chris Carlian from Tasmania's Department of Natural Resources and Environment at a news conference in Hobart on Thursday, in which he asked the Seals fans to give him privacy. Quote, we have some pretty silly behavior instances with people carrying their small babies up close to him. Oh my goodness, no, guys, no, guys. No. These are like the people that take pictures close up to bison. Dude, they are fast and heavy and violent creatures. I mean, you look at this face and you go, oh, look at that bottom. But no, Neil will beat you down dead. Stay away from Neil, especially with your babies, okay? Quote, we've had some pretty silly behavior instances with people carrying their small babies up close to him and simply trying to get that shot for Instagram. Come on, guys. Officials have urged the public to refrain from identifying the town Neil is currently delighting or terrorizing. Depending on who you speak to, they fear a disastrous encounter between the seal and an admirer could force rangers into a risky operation to move him elsewhere. Okay? So Neil the Seal, guys, go to TikTok, look him up. He is a rascally seal, and he is delightful and makes me happy. He makes me happy, and guys, those are ye headlines.
True crime headlines.
Okie dokie. Wrapping out the show. Robin says, you're going to do the good news one I asked about. I'm jumping for joy. Well, Robin, don't hurt yourself. And thank you for the suggestion. Hey, you guys can suggest good news if you want. Go to gavinfish.com, click on the little envelope icon, and send me your good news. What else we got? New to Heaven says, well, this is an interesting comment. This feels like a plant, okay? But we're going to read it. Gavin, you should try to get Elizabeth from Hillbilly Crime on your show to talk about this case. She probably has some great insight being from the Appalachian region. You don't say, New to Heaven, because this very evening, I will be over on Hillbilly Crime with Elizabeth as a guest, and she will be back on my program later in the week. Kind of rad. So I will try to do that. Thank you very much for the suggestion. I say tongue planted firmly in cheek. I love Elizabeth. She's my buddy, and I love going on her show, and I love it when she comes on mine. Let's see. Divas, New York. I don't understand. How is it that TR admitted that he committed the crime, and yet we're going through a pretrial and possibly a trial? Because he has not entered an actual plea. I'm sure some of the evidence they will be showing at the prelim is, hey, look, he said he did it. So there we go. Clarinet Girl says, I do not play the lottery and would sing with the former Brazil 66. Great choice. Julie says, I'd love to sing with Fleetwood Mac. Another great choice, of course. New to Heaven says, hey, I just saw you were joining Hillbilly Crime after this live. Disregard my last crime. I shall not disregard it, madam. I shall delightfully regard it. Thank you very much. Mooney says, if Magbanua can help convict Wendy, maybe a shorter sentence is in order. From life to 40 years works for me. Robin says, go Team Neil. Sherry says, I don't play the lottery and Journey. I sing in the same key as Steve Perry. Well, you've got a range. Let's see. Couple more. Lovin' Neil the Seal. Robin says, the plan for Neil will not include euthanasia like the walrus in Norway. Some folks were concerned. Yeah. Neil is a celebrity, and he deserves his celebrity. He is amazing. Guys, tonight was a long one. Thanks for hanging in there all the way to the end. Thank you very much for supporting me through the super chats tonight. I'm sure by the time I sign off and start on Elizabeth's show, it'll already be demonetized. So I deeply appreciate you. There are other ways that you can support me. If you want to go over to the old website, gavinfish.com, you can click on this little support me tab, and that gives you plenty of ways that you can support my work. Look, I got a new picture up in all my social medias. Ooh, I don't have a new picture there. I need a new family picture where I'm not such a big old fat fatty. But here are different ways that you can help me, including helping Autumn, who is my lead moderator, by buying her a coffee. Of course, you can always reach out to me by clicking on the envelope and sending me your information. If you click on this little fishy, that will take you to the tank where we hang out. See, I've updated all of my socials with my new fajoto with the short hair. Yeah, join us over there. We'd love to have you. And with that, I shall bid you adieu. Thank you very much for being here for this long one tonight. I am grateful for you, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.